June 2020, paper 2, variant 3. Question 1. Diagram 1 shows a solid rectangular sided block. Diagram 2 shows the same block from the front and from the side. Can I find the volume of this block? Yes, the volume would be the length times width times the height. The height would be the difference from 1 to 5, which is 4. The length, for example, would be from 4 to 11, which is 7, because subtract, and then the width would be from 15 to 21, which is 6. So when you multiply 4 times 7 times 6, this would give you a volume of 168 centimeters cubed. Question 2. Which statement describes the motion of the ball? As the ball is moving downwards, speed is increasing to 0, 2.8, 5.1, 7.0. So the acceleration is not constant. Is it constant or is it not constant? Let's see. First of all, can I cancel out some of the wrong answers? Yes, I can. The velocity is constant. No, the velocity is obviously increasing. It's accelerating. The speed is decreasing. No, it is increasing. The acceleration is negative. No, the acceleration is actually positive because it's increasing the speed. So the only right answer would be that the acceleration is not constant. If you find the difference from 0 to 2.8, it's 2.8. From 2.8 to 5.1, it's only 2.3. And so on from 5.1 to 7, it's only 1.9. So the acceleration is not constant. Which statement about the acceleration is correct? It is related to the changing speed of an object. Yes, it is. Which statement correctly describes the effects of placing a heavy load in a car? As the mass of the car increases, what happens to the car? It's easier to accelerate. Would it be easier to accelerate a heavy car? No. It's more difficult to accelerate the car and more difficult to bring the car to rest, or would it be easier to bring the car to rest? Some of you might say it would be easier because it's already heavy, so I can stop it easier. I just want you to think about a huge truck moving, even if it's moving with a very, very small speed, very slowly. A huge truck moving slowly. Can you stop this truck? No, you cannot. But can you stop a moving ball? Yes, you can stop this very small ball. Why? Because of its mass. So as you increase the mass, it would be more difficult to accelerate this object, and it would be more difficult to bring this object to rest. Which row gives the correct weight for the mass shown? If the G is 10 newtons, so if the mass is 2 kilograms, then the weight is 20. Yes, 2 times 10 would be 20. A rectangular gymnasium is 50 meters long, 25 meters wide, 8 meters high. The density, what is the mass? Can I find the mass? Yes, mass would be equal to the density times the volume. So 1.2 times 50 times 25 times 8. And do not need to convert anything in this question. Will give you a total mass of 12,000 kilograms. Which moving object has a resultant force acting on it? Has a resultant force acting on it. A diver rising vertically with a constant speed. Rising vertically with a constant speed? No, so it's wrong. An aircraft circling an airport at a constant speed. So you might say it's moving with a constant speed, so it doesn't have a resultant force acting on it. Which would be wrong. Why? Because it's moving in a circular motion. Whenever you're moving in a circular motion, there is this centripetal force acting towards the center of the rotation. So don't forget about the circular motion. Yes. It's B. Again, all of the others would be wrong. Vertical. If you're moving vertically or horizontally, okay, in a straight line with a constant speed, terminal velocity is constant speed, straight line, constant speed again, then the resultant force would be 0. Which quantity is not a vector? Not a vector. Temperature. Yes, temperature is a scalar quantity. A ball falls vertically to the ground and rebounds vertically upwards. Just before it hits the ground, its speed was 4. As it rebounds, the speed is 3. The mass of the ball is 5. What is the change in momentum of the ball? So you have several answers. And not just that, you have to state whether this change in momentum was downwards or was it upwards. You have to state whether the change was downwards or if it was upwards. Now, as the ball changes its direction, it was moving downwards, right? And then it was moving upwards. It was moving downwards at a speed of 4 meters per second, and then it moved upwards at a speed of 3 meters per second. You have to give one of these a negative sign. The 4 meters, for example, I'd say that the 4 meters would have a negative sign because it's moving downwards, and the 3 meters per second would have a positive sign since it's moving upwards. Can I find the change in momentum? mv minus mu. And you have to be very specific in this question. U was the initial velocity and v was the final velocity. In this question, specifically in this question, other questions we sometimes could have ignored it, but in this specific question, you have to make sure that you know the difference between u and v. Okay, and in this question, you have to make sure that you know that u is negative because it's moving downwards and that v is positive because it's moving upwards. So now the mass would be 0.5 times 3 minus 0.5 times negative 4, right? This would give you a total of 3.5 kilograms dot meter per second. Kilograms dot meter per second. Should it be upwards or should it be downwards? Isn't this a positive value? Yes, it is a positive value, indicating that it is moving in this direction, in the upward direction, or 3.5 kilograms dot meter per second upwards, since it's positive. If you had changed the sign, for example, if you said that the u was negative and the v was positive, and you solved the question, then if you said that u was positive and v was negative, your final answer would have been negative 3.5. Your final answer would have been negative 3.5, again indicating the same direction as the v, the same direction as v, which is towards, which is upwards. Again, negative would have been upwards. Again, the same final solution, 3.5 kilograms dot meter per second upwards. A mass bounces up and down. At which point does the mass have the least gravitational potential energy and the most elastic energy stored? The least gravitational potential energy would be the point closest to the ground, which is the lowest point, right? It would be the point closest to the ground. The least gravity, so the lowest point. Most elastic potential energy would be when it's stretched the most. Where would it be stretched the most? Again, at this point, at the lowest point. So it would be D. The velocity v of an object increases as it falls down towards the ground, which quantity is directly proportional to v squared. V squared would be the kinetic energy of the object. On which labeled surface should the block rest to produce the smallest pressure? So you want the largest area. You want to increase the area, which would be P, because it's 40 times 80. A pipe full of water connects water supply on a hill. Okay, the length of the pipe is 500 meters. The height of the supply is 100 meters. The density of the water is 1,000 kilograms. The effect of the atmospheric is negligible. Yes, it is negligible. What is the water pressure at the tap? Can I find the pressure? Yes, pressure would be equal to rho GH. Density of the water was 1,000. G 9.8 or 10 to differ that much. And the height, should I take 500 or 100? You should definitely take the 100. Why? Because it's the vertical height. We don't care about the length of the pipe. We care about the vertical height. This will give you a final answer of 980,000 pascals or 1 million pascals. When a molecule rebounds from a wall, force is exerted. What causes this force? The change of momentum. Kinetic energy does not change, nor does the speed change. The relationship between pressure and volume is given as PV equals constant, under which conditions for the mass of a gas and temperature does this equation hold? The mass has to be constant, and the temperature also has to be constant. Why? Because you're changing the pressure and the volume, so you have to have a constant temperature and mass. Question 16 is cancelled. Question 17. Which block shows the greatest rise in temperature? If they are all given the same quantity of thermal energy, then the one with the least mass, the smallest one, which is A, would have the greatest rise in temperature. Why are metals better conductors? Because they have free moving electrons. 19. Which methods of heat loss are reduced by the vacuum? Vacuum prevents what? Prevents conduction and convection. Prevents conduction and convection because there are no molecules in the vacuum. Earthquake monitoring station records the arrival of 16 complete waves in 20 seconds. The speed is 6 kilometers per second. What is the wavelength? Okay, first of all, I need to find the frequency. The frequency would be equal to the number of waves over the time. Waves over time. 16 over 20. 16 over 20, which is 0.8, right? 0.8 hertz. This is the frequency. The speed, you have to take care that the speed is 6 kilometers per second, meaning that it's 6,000 meters per second. To find the wavelength, it would be the speed over the frequency. 6,000 divided by 0.8, giving you 7,500. The amplitude of this wave is 3. The wavelength would be 8. Which statement is correct? The speed of light in glass is equal to the speed of light in the vacuum multiplied by the refractive index. Would that be true? That would be wrong. Why? Because this would mean that the speed of light in the glass is greater than the speed of light in the vacuum, which is wrong. A is wrong. The incident angle is the angle between the ray and the glass surface? No, between the ray and the normal line. The sine of the critical angle is equal to 1 over the refractive index. Yes. N equals 1 over sine C, so sine C would be equal to 1 over N. Yes, this is correct. Which statement about converging lenses is correct? Converging lenses. A real image of an object projected onto a screen by converging lens is always inverted. Real image is always inverted. Yes, it is. An intruder alarm uses which wave? Intruder alarms use the infrared radiation. Two people are standing outdoors on either side of the high wall. Person 1 can hear person 2 talking, although he cannot see her. Which statement explains this? Which statement explains this? Sound waves have diffracted around the wall. These sound waves have diffracted around the wall. Isn't this correct? It is. It is correct. He can hear her because of the diffraction. The sound waves have diffracted since they have a longer wavelength than the light waves. Okay, so this is the correct answer. If you want to cancel out the wrong answers, sound waves have passed unaffected through the wall. No, they would be affected. The sound waves have reflected. That's if they're both on the same side. So this is wrong. The sound waves have refracted around the wall. See, if he had said refracted through the wall, it might have been correct. Again, might have been correct. But since he said have refracted around the wall, so this is wrong. 4 nails A, B, C, and D. Which nail becomes the strongest permanent magnet? To have the strongest permanent magnet, it needs to have the strongest magnetic effect or magnetic field. Therefore, it needs to attract the most amount of nails, right? Or I'm sorry, most amount of paper clips. It needs to attract the most amount of paper clips. If you take a look at the second column, which one has the most amount of paper clips still attached to it after you have removed the bar magnet? After you have removed the bar magnet. Only this one, C. So C is the strongest magnet. You'd say, what about D? So D attracted 5 initially, right? But finally, is it still a strong permanent magnet after you have removed the bar magnet from it? No, it's a weaker. It now has become a weaker permanent magnet than C. Question 27 is removed. Magnetization and demagnetization. 28 also has been removed because you are no longer required to learn about the okay, induction. What is the resistance of each resistor? If you have the voltmeter reading is 2.2 volts and the current is 0.2 amps, can I find the resistance? Yes, R equals V over I. 2.2 over oh, oops, sorry. 2.2 over 0.25, which is 8.8 ohms. If you choose D, it would be wrong. Why? Because you have two resistors. So 8.8 ohms is the resistance of both resistors together. You have to divide by 2, giving you 4.4 ohms. There is a current of 2 amps in the resistance. 8 ohms, how much power is dissipated in the resistor? Can I find the power? Yes, power equals VI. Or power equals I squared R, right? You can say I squared R, giving power equals I squared R, which is 2 squared times 8 or 32 watts. If you forgot this equation and you only remember P equals IV, you can find the voltage by saying V equals IR, right? V equals IR or 2 times 8, right? 2 times 8, okay? And then um, 2 times 8, which is 16. And then you'll multiply P equals IV, so 2 times 16 is again 32 watts. The lamps, the diodes, and the batteries are identical. In which circuit does the ammeter give the greatest reading? In which circuit does the ammeter give the greatest reading? Greatest reading would mean that you have the least resistance, right? Greatest reading would mean that you have the least resistance. Can I cancel out the wrong answers? Yes, D is wrong because the current wouldn't pass. C, okay, so it passes through this lamp, but not this lamp. You want the least resistance, so you want both lamps to be on while they are parallel, because as you add lamps in parallel, the total resistance decreases. So C is wrong. B is also wrong because it wouldn't pass through this one. The only correct answer is A because it passes through both lamps. The current will go through both lamps. Two resistors are connected in series with a power supply. Which statement about the circuit is correct? The current from the supply is greater than the current in each resistor. Okay, the current from the supply is equal to the current in each resistor. Isn't this a series connection? It is a series connection. Okay, so you cannot choose A. You have to choose B because the current is constant. The current is the same throughout the whole circuit. This is a series connection. 33 and 34 are cancelled. 35, in which circuits is there a direct current? Direct current means that the current is only positive. Only positive. So actually, one is correct because it's only positive. It's changing, it's increasing and decreasing, but it's not negative at all, right? It's not negative at all. Or if it's negative, it would remain negative. For example, you could have the current in this way, for example. This would also be a direct current. Why? Because it's only moving in one direction. So 1 is correct and 3 is correct. 2 is wrong. 1 and 3. The coil of a simple AC generator rotates steadily. Diagram shows the position of the coil at time t0. Which graph shows the output voltage for one revolution of the coil? One revolution of the coil. At this position, Okay, so you can cancel out C and D, right? We will cancel out C and D. So we're stuck between A and B. Should it be A or should it be B? At this position, okay, the coil, will it move horizontally or will it move vertically? In other terms, at this position, will the coil move parallel to the magnetic field or perpendicularly to the magnetic field? Where is the magnetic field? This is the magnetic field, right? At this position, the coil is slightly moving to the right and to the left, right? So at this position, it's slightly moving parallel to the magnetic field, indicating that at this position it will give a zero output. Zero output. So it starts with zero and then goes on. If the coil was positioned this way, for example, okay, and he said that the direction of the rotation was in this direction, yes, you would have started with the maximum output. Why? Because it's moving upwards and downwards at this position exactly. 36. 37. What occurs during nuclear fusion? Fusion. So you join smaller atoms, right? You join smaller atoms. Two light atomic nuclei join together and emit energy. A radioactive material has a half-life of 20 days. A sample of the material contains 8 times 10 to the power of 10 atoms. How many atomic nuclei have decayed after 60 days? Have decayed after 60 days. So 60 days divided by 20, this means that you have 3 half-lives. You start off with 8 divided by 2, 4 divided by 2, 2 divided by 2. So you only have 1 times 10 to the power of 10 atoms remaining after 6 days. 1 times 10 to the power of 10 atoms remaining after 10 days. 1 is wrong. This answer would be wrong. Why? Because he's asking about how many nuclei have decayed. You have 1 remaining. So the amount that has decayed would be 8 minus 1, which is 7 times 10 to the power of 10 atoms that have decayed. A thin sheet of paper is placed between a radioactive source and a radiation detector. The count rate falls to a very low reading due to this thin sheet of paper. From this result, what type of radiation? Alpha particles. Alpha, beta, and gamma rays are emitted, which emissions can be deflected by an electric field. Only alpha and beta particles.